David Lean's 1957 epic The Bridge on the River Kwai stands as one of the most iconic war films in cinema history. Adapted from Pierre Boulle's novel, the film straddles the line between war story, psychological drama, and moral parable. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Alec Guinness, cementing its place as a towering achievement in post-war filmmaking. Yet while it is lauded for its cinematic mastery, the film is also riddled with historical inaccuracies and ideological ambiguities that continue to fuel debate. This review critique aims to unpack the film's artistry, themes, performances, and legacy, while also considering its shortcomings and problematic portrayals. The film opens in 1943 in the jungles of Japanese-occupied Burma during World War II. British prisoners of war, led by Colonel Nicholson, Alec Guinness, are marched into a Japanese prison camp commanded by Colonel Saito, Sesshu Hayakawa. Saito orders them to begin construction of a railway bridge over the River Kwai, part of the infamous Burma Railway Project. The brutal conditions and the Japanese demand that officers also work alongside enlisted men immediately spark a clash between Nicholson, a rigid believer in military discipline, and Saito, who insists on obedience. Nicholson refuses to allow his officers to work, citing the Geneva Convention. After an extended standoff, including solitary confinement and near death from heat exposure, Saito relents, and Nicholson emerges victorious in principle. Yet, in a twist of irony, Nicholson takes ownership of the bridge project, believing that building a proper, sturdy bridge will uphold British honor and discipline. The bridge transforms from a symbol of oppression into Nicholson's personal obsession, blinding him to the fact that he is aiding the enemy. Meanwhile, the film intercuts with the story of Shears, William Holden, an American POW who escapes the camp, only to be conscripted into a British commando mission led by Major Warden, Jack Hawkins. Their goal is to return to the camp and destroy the bridge before it can be used by the Japanese. The climax unites these narratives in a tense final act, where Nicholson realizes, too late, the futility and madness of his efforts. In the chaos of battle, he falls on the detonator, triggering the destruction of the bridge as the train passes, and the famous line is uttered. Madness! Madness! David Lean's direction is central to the film's enduring power. Known for his mastery of the epic form, Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, Lean turns the tropical jungle into both a setting and a character. The oppressive heat, lush greenery, and sweeping landscapes frame the human drama as small and fragile against the enormity of nature. His use of widescreen compositions, deliberate pacing, and long takes emphasize the psychological weight of the story. The destruction of the bridge, filmed practically without miniatures or CGI, is one of cinema's most spectacular sequences. The tension builds as the train approaches, intercut with desperate human conflict on the riverbank. Lean's choice to stage this in real time heightens suspense and grants the ending a tragic inevitability. Yet Lean's deliberate pacing is also a point of criticism. At nearly 3 hours, the film occasionally drags, particularly in the midsection as Nicholson's obsession takes hold. For some viewers, this languid rhythm mirrors the slow decay of reason under duress. For others, it risks monotony. Guinness delivers one of his career-defining performances. Nicholson is portrayed as a man of rigid principles, consumed by his belief in military order and British superiority. Guinness plays him with a stoic, almost monk-like calm, which slowly shades into obsession. His final moments, when realization dawns on him, provide one of the most powerful character collapses in film history. However, the portrayal has also been criticized for glorifying a dangerously misguided man. Nicholson's pride leads him to collaborate with the enemy, a moral failing the film only half condemns. Holden provides a crucial counterpoint to Guinness. His American Shears is pragmatic, cynical, and self-preserving, an anti-hero figure typical of post-war American cinema. When Nicholson clings to duty and idealism, Shears embodies survival and skepticism. Holden's charm and sarcasm prevent the film from collapsing under the weight of its seriousness, though his subplot sometimes feels like a conventional war adventure spliced into a darker parable. Hayakawa's performance is layered and sympathetic. At first presented as a sadistic caricature, Saito gradually emerges as a man under immense pressure, torn between honor, fear of failure, and desperation. His relationship with Nicholson evolves from adversarial to oddly dependent, highlighting the film's theme of blurred loyalties. Warden provides the embodiment of stiff, pragmatic British military leadership. His ruthlessness during the commando mission, especially when he leaves Shears to die, is chilling, yet underscores the film's insistence that war strips men of humanity, regardless of nationality. The final line, "Madness! Madness!" encapsulates the film's central theme. Nicholson, in seeking to uphold discipline and pride, loses sight of the larger picture. His commitment to order becomes indistinguishable from collaboration. The bridge thus becomes a symbol not of victory or defeat, but of the insanity that war breeds in men's minds. Nicholson clings to the Geneva Convention and to the notion of British honor, but in doing so, he betrays his larger duty as a soldier, to resist the enemy. The film interrogates whether principles are meaningful when they blind men to moral reality. The film is steeped in the language of British superiority. Nicholson's obsession with showing the Japanese how it should be done reveals a colonial arrogance. Lean allows the viewer to see the danger in this pride, but the narrative also indulges in it, positioning British discipline as the standard of civilization. The battle between Nicholson and Saito is as much about personal pride as it is about military duty. Both men fear humiliation more than death, and both seek validation through domination. The bridge becomes a phallic symbol of conquest, a monument to male ego rather than practical necessity. Jack Hildyard's Oscar-winning cinematography frames the jungle in painterly widescreen shots. The interplay of shadow and light emphasizes the oppressive heat and claustrophobia of the camp, contrasting with the expansive grandeur of the completed bridge. Malcolm Arnold's score is best remembered for the Colonel Bogey March, whistled by the prisoners. This jaunty tune, juxtaposed against their grim captivity, underscores the absurdity of war. It has since become one of cinema's most iconic musical motifs. Lean's editorial control sustains tension, particularly in the final act. However, the middle section could arguably be tightened. Some critics suggest that Lean's penchant for grandeur sometimes undermines the intimacy of the human drama. The film has been criticized for its liberties with history. The Rio-Burma Railway, also known as the Death Railway, was constructed under horrific conditions, costing the lives of over 100,000 laborers, including thousands of Allied POWs. In reality, British officers did not collaborate in building quality bridges for the Japanese. Instead, they engaged in sabotage whenever possible. Survivors of the railway construction condemned the film for whitewashing the cruelty and for suggesting complicity on the part of Allied POWs. Furthermore, the depiction of Nicholson's moral collapse may serve cinematic drama but distorts historical truth. Critics argue that Lean and Bull created a parable about pride at the expense of accurately honoring those who suffered. Yet defenders argue that the film is not intended as documentary but as allegory. The bridge becomes a metaphor, not a historical record, and Nicholson's madness serves as a broader indictment of misplaced values. Upon release, The Bridge on the River Kwai was a critical and commercial triumph. It won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, and grossed over $30 million, a monumental figure at the time. It solidified David Lean's reputation as the master of the epic, paving the way for Lawrence of Arabia. Culturally, the film influenced subsequent war films by blending spectacle with moral ambiguity. It rejected simple patriotism in favor of questioning the very meaning of duty and honor. The whistling of the Colonel Bogey March entered popular culture, while the bridge destruction became one of cinema's most replayed sequences. However, its legacy is complicated. Survivors of the Burma Railway continue to view the film with hostility, feeling it trivialized their suffering. Contemporary critics also highlight its colonialist undertones and question whether its admiration for Nicholson undermines its critique of him. Nonetheless, its endurance in film history courses, war film retrospectives, and popular memory is undeniable. It remains a touchstone for discussions of war cinema, leadership, and moral ambiguity. The Bridge on the River Kwai endures as a masterpiece of filmmaking, an epic that combines spectacle with psychological depth. Its cinematography, music, and performances, particularly Alec Guinness's Nicholson, elevate it to legendary status. Yet it is also a flawed film, marred by historical inaccuracy, colonial arrogance, and occasional pacing issues. As both parable and entertainment, it succeeds magnificently. As historical testimony, it falters. Ultimately, the film's brilliance lies in its ability to provoke debate about duty, pride, and the madness of war. In Nicholson's tragic fall, audiences glimpse the universal human tendency to let principle metastasize into obsession. Lean's film warns us that in war, the greatest enemy is often not the opposing army, but the madness within ourselves.